Daniel Ricciardo's career is a true go big or go home story. Unfortunately for the Australian, his story isn't a feel-good coming-of-age summer blockbuster. It's more of an emotional tragedy. From his first season in Formula 1 at HRT to his most recent move to McLaren, Daniel's career can probably be better marked out by the bad decisions made rather than the good ones. These bad decisions seem to be starting to take their toll on F1's most lovable driver. But is Ricciardo's time in F1 running out? Before we can talk about whether Ricciardo is heading towards the end of his career, we need to first take an overview of it so far. Daniel Ricciardo reached Formula 1 through Red Bull's Young Driver program. The Aussie was given the chance to make his F1 debut at the British Grand Prix with struggling back-of-the-grid team HRT. Ricciardo remained at the team for the rest of the season, showing gradual signs of progress and faring well against his more experienced teammates. That earned him a promotion to Toro Rosso's race team for 2012. Ricciardo was quick to deliver on the point-scoring potential of the STR7, coming home 9th in his home race at Melbourne. But 11 races passed before he returned to the points, as Toro Rosso found themselves at the tail of a congested midfield. Ricciardo became a regular contender for points in the second half of the season though. In career, a gearbox problem left him 21st on the grid, but he finished 9th. It was an impressive race for such a young driver at the time. Ricciardo continued his form at Toro Rosso in 2013, and when Mark Webber retired at the end of the 2013 season, Red Bull came calling for Daniel. But was he really their best choice at the time? Valtteri Bottas would have happily moved from Williams that season, or maybe Lotus's Romain Grosjean could have been tempted. It was Daniel who made the move though, and joined reigning world champion Sebastian Vettel at the team. Vettel had dominated the previous season with 13 wins from 19 races, but 2014 saw big engine changes and was the beginning of the Mercedes hybrid dynasty. The RB10 was clearly second best, but it was capable of winning races, in Ricciardo's hands at least. To the surprise of many, it was not the reigning 4-times champion Sebastian Vettel who took Red Bull's 3 wins that year, but the new addition to the team. Vettel's poor performance in 2014 saw him move to Ferrari in hopes of a happier environment and a more competitive car. This made Ricciardo the Red Bull team leader. It was a huge step for a relatively inexperienced driver, and it was ultimately a disappointing season for him. An 8th place finish, a place below his teammate, was a real disappointment for a driver that had so much promise. Luckily for Daniel though, 2016 was a much better year. He was consistent, fast and competitive when possible against the lightning-fast Mercedes. 8 podiums that season was a fantastic return, but his new teammate Max Verstappen was starting to flex his muscles, and with the Dutch driver settling in well at Red Bull in his first season there, things were about to get a lot harder for Daniel Ricciardo. It was 2018 where Daniel finally started to feel the pressure from Max Verstappen. While Verstappen made a somewhat shaky start to his second full year at Red Bull, Ricciardo was in excellent form. He won 2 of the opening 6 races, avenging his lost Monaco victory of 2 years earlier, and looked like a potential title contender. It didn't last, however, and his faith in the team was undermined by a collision with Verstappen in Azerbaijan, which he felt the team did too little to help avoid. Verstappen had already extended his contract to remain at the team, while Ricciardo's future remained in doubt. Red Bull offered him a pretty insane contract to try and keep him at the team, but now Daniel wasn't the main man anymore. He was ready to move to a team that would put him back to being number 1. The fact that Red Bull were willing to offer Ricciardo a huge contract should tell you everything you need to know about where he was in the sport at the time. Do you think Daniel moved because he wasn't up for the fight with Max Verstappen? Or was he just in need of a little more love from his team? Ricciardo made the decision to switch to Renault, but it didn't pay off. Daniel managed a 9th place finish in the drivers' standings, 5 places above teammate Nico Hülkenberg. It wasn't a great season for the Aussie, his first in 5 years that didn't feature a podium finish, but that was mostly down to the car, not him. Renault managed to deliver a more competitive car in 2020, but 2 podium finishes wasn't enough for Daniel, and he decided to make the move to McLaren for 2021. During Daniel's time at Renault, Red Bull managed to compete for podiums at every race. His move to Renault was obviously a mistake in hindsight and a huge step back in his career. Do you think that move was the beginning of the downfall for Daniel Ricciardo? The lovable Aussie appeared to be a welcome addition to the McLaren team and a good match for new teammate Lando Norris. While Daniel may have come in as the more experienced driver, the young Lando Norris was clearly the centre of McLaren's plans thanks to his huge 5-year contract. It was an environment that Daniel had walked away from at Red Bull, and it would cause him problems again, but we'll get onto that shortly though. Unfortunately for Daniel, while he may be happy at McLaren, he's been unable to achieve the highs of his time at Red Bull. A race win for the first time in 3 years was his only trip to the podium in 2021. If Lando Norris hadn't followed team orders to stay behind Daniel, it's likely that the Aussie would have ended up taking second instead of first. He finished the season in 8th, 45 points behind his teammate. Everyone knew that the young talent starting to grow in F1 was strong. Daniel's current teammate Lando Norris, ex-teammate Max Verstappen, and replacement at renamed Alpine Esteban Ocon all had strong seasons, while Daniel arguably underperformed more than he ever had before. Does Ricciardo's start to 2022 impress you more than any of those drivers? I doubt it. In 2021, he was expected to be faster than Norris, but failed to produce the form shown earlier in his career. Coming into 2022, people were still expecting him to be faster. He had a year at McLaren now. He knew how the team worked and had been with the team while they developed the brand new car, so hopefully it would be more suited to him. So far this season, he's looked closer to Lando than in 2021, but whether it continues like that remains to be seen. So now you know the struggles he's faced. Let's consider whether he still merits a place in Formula 1. We think that it's the trouble he faced with McLaren in 2021 that best highlights why McLaren may be the last team he drives for in F1. The 2021 McLaren MCL 35M was a difficult car to drive. Lando Norris consistently produced superb performances, while teammate Daniel Ricciardo faced a long, hard, and often fruitless slog to adapt to it. Ricciardo became frustrated, attempting to implement a counterintuitive driving style required by that he described as a peculiar car. Usually, you would expect a driver of Ricciardo's high caliber to get on top of a new car after half a dozen races. Certainly, he thought that was how long the process would take, before reluctantly admitting that his struggles were a reality rather than a temporary problem. Ricciardo's problem is that he likes to carry speed into the corner by braking a little earlier and rolling the speed into the corner. The McLaren had a front-end weakness that was mitigated by braking later, something Daniel doesn't naturally do. Ricciardo struggled to adapt to this, often braking earlier than Norris and ending up with the car under-rotated, meaning he was traction limited for longer in the exit phase than Norris, simply because he effectively extended the corner. Ricciardo had just a day and a half in the car in pre-season, and since then did his learning on race weekends. At times, he was intensively coached by race engineer Tom Stallard as he battled to tune into a driving style he didn't enjoy. Despite the help of his team though, Daniel was unable to adapt, and maybe that's where the problem lies. At Renault, he was the number one guy. The suggestions he had for the car were listened to and implemented. At Red Bull, the same thing happened until his final year, when Max Verstappen started to get a voice in the garage. Now at McLaren, it's Lando Norris who appears to be leading the development of the car more than Daniel, and Lando's 5-year contract shows that the team intend to keep him as number one for a while. It is Daniel's perceived struggle when not in the spotlight that might mean his time in Formula 1 is coming to an end. He's one of the older drivers on the grid now, and his inability to adapt to a car not tailored to him is a fault that probably isn't going to go anywhere. After so many uncompetitive seasons, it's unlikely that Ferrari, Red Bull, or Mercedes are going to come along and offer to build a car around him. His next career move is more likely to take him the other way, towards the back of the grid, where he may find a team that will develop a car more to his preferences, but is unlikely to be as competitive he would like. Ricciardo isn't interested in being in a car that can't win races though, and if things don't start going right at McLaren for him, then there may be other racing series that he finds more hospitable. It's a shame to see a driver struggle as much as he had, but he's brought this problem upon himself. His inability to adapt, coupled with the brand new cars, may mean Daniel is in for a difficult season in Formula 1. Could it be so bad that it spells the end for his time in Formula 1? Well, we'll have to wait and see. Let us know what you think of Daniel Ricciardo's chances this season in the comments below. And make sure to hit the notification button and give us a like while you're there. Thanks for watching and see you soon.